So without further ado, I am going to introduce you. I'm going to ask Dr. Patricia Paul, the National Coordinator of WCCM, to take over from now. Thanks, Pat.
Good evening and welcome again, everyone, and also to those who have just joined us for the first time tonight. The topic is Leaving Self Behind, and will be presented by Roland Victor of Parish of the Church of Divine Mercy in Penang. Roland is the coordinator of our school teaching team. You heard Father Gerard last week, and the other members of these sessions will be Beth Rosario and Nicholas Chung. So without further ado, it's over to you, Roland.
Right, thank you very much, Pat, for the introduction. Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the second session of the introductory workshop on Christian meditation. So I'd like to welcome every one of you, and there are some newcomers today as well. I'd like to welcome them who have just joined for the first time in this second presentation. Okay, so let us get started then. So last week, Father Gerard addressed what is meditation. He spoke about meditation being pure prayer, prayer of the heart, that is without thoughts, words, or images. We are not thinking of God. We are not talking to Him or asking for anything. We are simply being with God, with the Holy Spirit which Jesus has given to us. We are not asking or thinking about God. He also shared that meditation is silence, stillness, and attention. He spoke about the prayer of Jesus in our hearts and also introduced the mantra, our prayer word, which is Ma Ra Na Ta. And in general, meditation is about moving from the mind to the heart. In meditation, we leave self behind in silence and stillness and open to the powerful presence of the Holy Spirit in our hearts. In Romans 8:26, St. Paul says, we do not know how to pray. The Spirit prays for us. In meditation, we let go and we let God. Meditation is a way of entering a state of prayer where we can encounter God in a deeply personal way. According to John Main, the all-important aim in meditation is to allow God's mysterious presence within us to become more and more not only a reality, but the reality, which gives meaning, shape, and purpose to everything we do, to everything we are. And that's according to Father John Main. We have the thirst and hunger for God. David in Psalm 63 wrote, "O God, you are my God. Earnestly I seek you. My soul thirsts for you. My body longs for you in a dry and weary land where there is no water." Our quest and desire is to be with God. In John chapter 15, it says, "Abide in me as I abide in you. Dwell in me as I dwell in you. We all have the longing to be and dwell with God in our hearts. Saint Augustine, an early Christian theologian in the 4th century, wrote what many theologians consider to be one of the greatest sentences ever written. You have made us for yourself, O Lord, and our heart is restless until it rests in you. Our heart is restless until it rests in you. In meditation, we come face to face with the mystery of God's longing for each one of us, here in the present moment. And to help us face whatever challenges and difficulties that we may encounter in our lives daily. A quote from John Main. In contemplative prayer, we seek to become the person we are called to be, not by thinking of God, but by being with God. Simply to be with God, to be drawn into being the person God calls us to be. A text from John Main. So let's look at the Bible verse. A verse that's quite familiar to most of you. In Matthew 16:24, then Jesus said to his disciples, whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Whoever wishes to come after me must deny himself, take up his cross, and follow me. Jesus says that when we pray, we must leave ourselves behind. No one can be a follower of mine, he says, unless he leaves himself behind. To deny oneself means in every moment of our life is to say no to self and yes to God. It means denying the self in order to put God and others first. God and others first. Therefore, the life of contemplation is so crucial because we give him time to speak to us in and through silence. It is the process of denial that is to humbly submit my will to God. Not my will, Lord, but yours be done. In the Sermon on the Mount, the very first beatitude that's familiar to all of you, blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Humility is perfect quietness of heart, being totally dependent on God, leaving behind all our preoccupations, all our plans, all our desires, our status, our reputation. We are totally dependent on God. In meditation, we do the same. We expect nothing in return from our practice. But many of us continue to be faithful to this daily practice. Many of us take the initiative to wake up earlier in the morning and to meditate. And we do that without knowing whether anything will happen as a result of this meditation. Because we do it in trust and in faith. We leave everything behind, poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. Now let's jump to the sixth beatitude. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they will see God. To be pure in heart refers to being single-minded, laser sharp, laser pointed to the devotion to God. And in meditation, that's what we do. There's only one thing that we do during meditation, that is to say our mantra, our prayer word. And this leads us to the purity of heart. Enter the narrow gate. So Jesus tells us not only to abandon our material things, but also not to think about them interiorly as well. This is the narrow gate. We have got to leave ourselves behind. Just like the camel loaded with goods of the rich man can't get through the narrow entrance of the Jewish city wall. For us, we need to unload ourselves of our excess baggages, especially our plans, our thoughts, our images, our worries that we constantly carry with us. Now, we'll come to the ego. And the ego is what makes divisions. And you can see here, you have the ego on your left, and on the right, your true self. The ego, or the false self, it is constantly observing, fragmenting, comparing, and measuring everything in terms of what is it in for me? What am I going to gain from all this? But the true self, on the other hand, is whole. It seeks to integrate, to be one with the other, to love without strings attached. The ego makes us love things and use people. But the true self challenges us to love people and use things. Our ego makes us desire to be great, to be successful, to be powerful, to be first, to be best, to be the fastest, to be the richest. And if it's not transcended, it will stop at nothing to achieve that greatness. At the same time, it makes us slaves to opinion and approval of others. Meditation unhooks ourselves from the ego and reconnect with the true self. In meditation, we move out of our self-fixation, our self-consciousness, and our self-obsession into a new freedom of the spirit. This is what leaving self behind means. Finding happiness by freeing ourselves from the ego and moving into a great relationship with God. And we develop the spiritual qualities of wisdom, love, joy, fear of God, fortitude, piety, knowledge. We will hear more of this on the 5th week when Dr. Pat shares with us the gifts of meditation. Here is another way of looking at this. Our identities between the false self and true self. Our true self longs to be one with us. The ego wants to be our God. The ego wants to be the false God, our false self. The ego cannot ascend, but it can awaken negatively. That is why we must remain relaxed, patient, compassionate, and observe ourselves and simply be. What we need to do is surrender intensely to our being, to the moment. We just need to be. Just be. Just be. Be still. Be still. Through meditation, it helps us over time to return to our true self. The keynote of Jesus' preaching with regards to perfection is the surrender of self. Not in any solemn or complex way, but in simplicity. The essence is simplicity. He told us this: unless you turn around and become like little children, you shall not enter into the kingdom of heaven. We need to open our hearts to Jesus in a complete childlike, non-judgmental, and trusting way. In the theology of meditation, first we need to understand the wonder and marvel of silence. Something most of us, frankly, we know that we are not really comfortable with. In Christian tradition, St. Ignatius of Antioch wrote, "It is better to be silent and real than to talk and be unreal." It is better to be silent and real than to talk and be unreal. This is the purpose of our meditation, to come to that ultimate reality which is beyond our mind. In meditation, what we have to learn is to be silent, to be filled with awe, and to worship. Silence is letting go and letting God. It is truthful, it is healing. This is what John Main has to say on silence. What we have to do is to enter into it, to become silent, to become the silence. The purpose of meditation and the challenge of meditation is to allow ourselves to become silent enough to allow this interior silence to emerge. Silence is the language of the spirit. Let's look at Jesus' examples of silence and solitude. In meditation, we do the same. In Matthew chapter 4, verse 1, then Jesus was led by the Spirit into the wilderness to be tempted. In Matthew chapter 14, verse 23, after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone. In Mark 1:35, very early in the morning, while it was still dark, Jesus got up, left the house, and went off to a solitary place where he prayed. Jesus indeed spent a lot of time alone in prayer. At the end of Matthew chapter 6 on prayer, Jesus says, don't worry about tomorrow. He is talking about living fully and faithfully in the present moment. Be present. Be real. Be present and be real. Don't worry about tomorrow, for tomorrow will worry about itself. Each day has enough trouble on its own. Matthew 6:34. As you meditate day by day, you will discover that you don't forget the past and you don't become irresponsible for the future. The past and the future will have certain realities that you have to respect. But you will find that as you learn to live in the present moment, you will become less anxious about the future and less controlled by the past. And you won't be as trapped in the past, especially those aspects of the past that cause anger, guilt, or sadness. You will be able to deal with those moments and experiences of the past a little bit more freely and more peacefully. Live in the present moment. Learn to enjoy the present moment. Observe nature. Go for a walk outdoors, in the woods. Spend time with your children. Observe your children. Observe your grandchildren in how present they are when they seem to be very engaged in what they do, when they are playing with their toys. They are living in the present moment. Listen to the sounds of the woods when you go out walking, or the waves in the sea. It helps you to be more grounded and alive. In many times, myself included, we go through life rushing and missing the journey. And we missed all that, the people that are around us. And because we are so preoccupied with what we have to do next. Enjoy the present moment. So this was something that Father Gerard spoke about. I would like to just repeat this again on the mantra. That mantra is helping us to move from ourselves to God. It helps us to continuously take our attention off ourselves. It gives an experiential meaning of leaving ourselves behind and to transcend our limitations. And this is what the mantra helps us to do. Our self-promotion, our self-preservation, and our self-projection. Ma, Ra, Na, Ta. Ma, Ra, Na, Ta. Come, Lord. Come, Lord. Some of you have already started to meditate. That's great news. I just want to remind everyone that distractions are very normal. It is part of us being human. These are some of the guidance on handling distractions. Do not seek to fight them. Put your full attention on your mantra, gently returning to your mantra throughout the meditation. It doesn't matter if you are distracted 5 times or 10 times or 20 times, just go back to your mantra. Do not focus on the distractions. Treat it as a background noise, something that's playing in the background. Just like when you go to the supermarket, sometimes there's a music playing in the background. You don't really observe this, unless it's a song that you really like. But in most times, just let it be. Be humble, be patient, be faithful. Keep your sense of humor. And do not underestimate the perseverance that you need and the grace that you receive every time you return to your mantra. It takes time. It takes time. Another way of looking at this is your distractions are like the waves in the sea. You can't stop them, but you can gently try to surf. It's just another analogy for you to share this point. Just return gently to your mantra. And I'd like to give a little bit of advice. As you start and begin to meditate, please do not look for results. As I mentioned earlier, it's more of a faith journey. Therefore, give up the idea of success or failure. Your ego will say to you in either one of this, you are not doing this well. This is a complete waste of time. You are not good as a meditator. Try something else. This is not for me. Now, when you hear that little voice of that ego, just smile and say, I'm committed to this. Go away, please. Or just tell to yourself, be still. Be still. And be still. Gently go back to your mantra. If you are meditating at that time, just return back to your mantra. You will face this continuously, but do persevere. And again, don't worry about whether you are progressing or not. You are already progressing by spending the time to meditate. You are already progressing. Once again, contemplation sets you free. Jesus said he came to show us and to bring us the fullness of life, so that we could live life to the full and maximize our full human potential. Through meditation, we gradually bring harmony, laughter, and love back into our soul, into our lives, and in the process, rediscover our unconditioned self, our true self, which can never really be lost. I have come that they may have life and have it to the full. John 10:10. Jesus said that it is the truth that will set you free. This is what you'll discover through meditation, the truth. And with the truth, we will be free from self-centeredness, free from hostility and bitterness, free from anxiety and all kinds of fears. Freedom from all kinds of bondages of evil habits as well, because meditation is being used, for addiction, for rehabilitation for addicts as well. This is the freedom Christ has come to give us. He has come to release us, to free us, and to be men and women that God has designed us to be. Enjoy the moment. Enjoy the moment. As a conclusion, with the grace of God, we hope to be like St. Paul, who will end up saying, "It is not I who live, but Christ lives in me." We are all on the journey to get there. We are all on the journey to get there. It's not I who live, but Christ lives in me. So in summary, this is what we covered today. We spoke about prayer of the heart. We spoke about the Beatitudes, poor in spirit, pure of heart. We spoke about entering the narrow gate, the freedom of ego, the false and true self, childlike simplicity, way of silence, and living in the present moment, with the aim of unity in Christ. So meditation is prayer of the heart. It involves meditating twice a day. And if you can manage it, 20 minutes each morning and evening. During that time, you recite your mantra, your prayer word with absolute simplicity, not analyzing it, not calculating whether or not it's worthwhile or not. And this requirement is total selflessness, total abandoning of all your thoughts, imaginations, insights, even your own prayers, and being open to the prayer of Jesus in your heart. And being open to the prayer of Jesus in your heart. Some final words. I would like to quote Henry Newman. The call to follow Christ is a call to discipleship, to being a beginner, to accepting simplicity, and to bowing to a discipline. Henry mentioned, if you want to be disciples of Jesus, you have to live a disciplined life. This would mean having a fixed time of prayer in the morning and in the evening. We may need to wake up 30 minutes earlier if we need to. Having a fixed location, a room, a routine will help us with this discipline. It will help us to keep our meditation grounded. As T.S. Eliot once mentioned, for us, there's only trying. The rest is not our business. It's up to God. For us, it is only trying. You are not alone on this journey. We have a few hundred meditation centers around the world, and we have a community of meditators close to you. By being online, we are even closer now than ever. And joining a group definitely helps you to remain steadfast and committed to this discipline. As mentioned last week, our community meditates online on weekdays, and normally the meeting doesn't take more than 45 minutes. So do join us if you can at 8:30 p.m. from Monday till Friday. And the Zoom conference ID is distributed by leaders every week. And it helps you to continue this journey by meditating together as a community. So this ends my presentation. And I hope that you can still bear with me as I continue to play a video by Father Lawrence Freeman. And he'll be speaking about introduction to Christian meditation. will play that right now.
Meditation is very simple and very natural. It's as simple and natural as coming home. I was watching in the spring the Canada geese returning home. The geese are following a natural homing instinct. It's part of their goosey nature that they know when to go home and the direction to follow. As human beings, we have a rather strong, distorting ego that gets in the way of this natural homing instinct. And in meditation, we move beyond the ego and we get back into touch with that homing instinct to God, to our own true self. And that's why meditation is simple and natural. It's simply the way to get back into touch with our own true nature. And that homing instinct in us we call the spirit.
A Benedictine monk, Father John Main, rediscovered a simple discipline of meditation within the Christian contemplative tradition. Born in 1926 in London into an Irish Catholic family, John Main's journey into the monastic life led him through work as a journalist, a diplomat, and a professor of law. It was when he was a diplomat in Malaysia that his spiritual life was opened to new depths by his meeting with an Indian monk, Swami Satyananda, who taught him a way of meditation beyond thought and imagination, in silence and stillness, by the repetition of a sacred word or mantra. By finding this same method of meditation in his own tradition, John Main's experience and teaching has led to a worldwide community of Christian meditators. Do you remember your first meeting with Father John and what you felt about him when you met him?
Yes, I do remember my first meeting with Father John very clearly, because my friend Eileen Byrne had taken me up to the prayer centre to meet him and to meditate with her for the first time. And we were in a room, we had all assembled, and 5 minutes or so after we arrived, he came in. And I was impressed, very impressed by his appearance to start with, by his stature. He just had a very dignified and impressive manner as he came in, and he just smiled and went straight into his talk. And I found myself listening, really spellbound to what he was saying, because he spoke with such authority, and he impressed me enormously in what he was saying and the way he was saying it. And I liked the way he quoted frequently from the letters of St. Paul, and related what he was saying back into things that I was familiar with. And by the time we went in to meditate, we went into the room that was quiet and dark and began to meditate. And I was overwhelmed by the silence, but felt that if this is what he was encouraging us to do, then I must carry on with it, at least for that session. And I was just completely convinced by him from that very first meeting, and I just meditated from that time onwards, and that was in 1976.
Do you think his authority helped you to get over that initial feeling of strangeness about meditation?
Oh, definitely. definitely. It was his authority and his personality that encouraged me to continue, because it was slightly strange to me. I had never prayed in that way before, and I was just so convinced by this man that I thought I've got to hang on in here and see what develops.
Just to summarise, what would you say to someone if they said to you what were his gifts or qualities as a teacher?
I would say his gifts and qualities as a teacher, going back to the beginning again, was that he spoke with tremendous authority and wisdom, and also the fact that his own personality had been obviously affected by the meditation, and I felt that was a very important thing too.
How was his personality affected, did you feel?
I felt there was a stillness and calmness about him and a wisdom, and I felt that those three qualities had come through meditation, and obviously one would have been very happy to think that it could affect oneself in that way as well.
Still meditating in this way, John Main became a Benedictine monk, but he was soon advised to give up the way of meditation he'd been following because it wasn't in the Christian tradition. He went to America, became headmaster of a Benedictine school, and became very busy. But at the same time, he started a study of the early Christian monks, the Desert Fathers, and their teaching on prayer. They were recorded in the conferences of John Cassian, who became a great influence on St. Benedict and the whole Christian contemplative tradition. In the 10th conference of Cassian, he describes how to deal with the restless, distracted, wandering mind, the monkey mind. And he advised this way, to take a short verse of scripture and to repeat it continually in the mind and heart during the time of meditation. John Main started to meditate again, now conscious of the Christian tradition behind the mantra. He very soon realized that this was a way of prayer not only for monks, but for lay people of all kinds.
That was the very first time I'd ever meditated. And I went into the room with all the other people and found it extremely difficult to concentrate for the period of time that he kept us there silent. But I managed it. I forgot the mantra halfway through, but I believe that's a common occurrence. After a month of meditation, my normal prayer life was completely turned upside down. And I was slightly disturbed by this and wanted to talk to him and tell him what my reaction had been. And so I went next day and talked to him about this effect. And I said that the only way I could describe it really accurately was to say that I felt as if I'd fallen in love. And he smiled and said, well, that's exactly what's happened. You've actually met God, as it were, and fallen in love with God in a way that you hadn't through your previous prayers and taking part in the liturgy, although you've obviously experienced God in other ways in the past.
The stress and pressure of modern urban living makes meditation very suitable for people today.
The first of many Christian meditation centres started in 1985 in central London, and it served as an oasis of silence and stillness through its daily meditation times and its weekly groups. The essence of meditation is simplicity. Meditation is about being, and being, essentially, is simple. Simple means not complex, not divided. And when we come to meditation, we very quickly discover that our minds are not simple. We're not even in the present moment. We're thinking about the past. We have anxieties about the future. We are thinking about ourselves or what other people think about us. We're solving our problems. The mind is constantly engaged in the complex business of living. And so when we come to meditation to learn it, we first of all have to learn to be simple, to lay aside our thoughts. The simplicity then leads us to stillness. The stillness of meditation, the stillness of mind that we come to, is rooted in the biblical idea of our way of knowing God. Be still and know that I am God. It's in this stillness of our mind and spirit, which includes the stillness of our body, that the knowledge of God naturally arises. So in meditation, we're not thinking about God. We're not thinking about ourselves and our complex lives. We're not trying to get God to come in and solve our problems. But we are being and being with God and allowing God to be with us. That stillness that we come to in meditation is also a freedom from desire, because desire often makes us complex and fearful. We want what we don't have, or we're frightened that we might lose what we have. In meditation, we lay aside our desires and we open ourselves to the gift. Instead of desiring, we learn to receive the gift, and we discover more and more deeply through the practice of meditation that the gift is of an infinite and eternal nature. It is boundless. It is the gift of God's own self to us. In the Christian understanding of prayer, we are not praying for something. We're not trying to get God to give us something, but we are entering into the prayer of Jesus himself, entering into his experience of the gift of the Father's love. And the sharing of that is the Spirit. So in Christian meditation, we are really entering into the deepest mystery of our faith, but in the most simple and immediate way. The simplicity and the stillness of meditation lead us into silence. And the silence is a laying aside not only of words, but even of thoughts. In meditation, we're moving to a deeper level of being, to a deeper potential of our humanity. The potential that we have to be one with Christ, to be with God in him. So how do we do this? How do we put this into practice? In meditation, we follow a very ancient tradition, a tradition that takes us back to the roots of our faith and to the earliest Christian teachers. We take a word, a single word, a prayer word, a mantra, and we repeat this word continually in mind and heart during the time of the meditation. So choosing the word is important because we stay with the same word and we allow the word to take root in our hearts through a daily practice. You could take the name Jesus, a very ancient Christian mantra, or the word Abba, a word that Jesus made sacred in his own teaching. The word I would recommend is the word Maranatha. Maranatha is a beautiful Christian prayer word or mantra because it's in the language that Jesus spoke, Aramaic. It means, "Come, Lord." It's the oldest Christian prayer, and St. Paul ends the first letter to the Corinthians with it. So it's a word of great sacred value and meaning. But we're not thinking about the meaning of the word as we say it. We say the word in order to let go of thoughts. Pay attention to the word as you say it, which means to listen to it. Give it your undivided attention. Say it as 4 syllables of equal length, ma, ra, na, tha. Articulate the word clearly in your mind and heart. Don't visualize it, because if you visualize it, you'll still be staying in your mind. And we're letting go of images as well as thoughts. But listen to the word And it's the listening that will lead you into that condition of silence, stillness, and simplicity. Take a moment to sit upright, whether you sit on a chair or a cushion or on a prayer stool. The important rule is to sit with your back straight. You should be relaxed. Let the muscles of your face relax. We often carry tension in our forehead or our jaw. Relax your shoulders. Put your feet on the ground if you're sitting on a chair. Put your hands on your lap or on your knees. So your body should be still. Try to sit as still as you can. It should feel comfortable, but also alert and wakeful. Close your eyes lightly. Breathe normally. And then silently, in your mind, in your heart, begin to say your word. And the word again I would suggest is Maranatha. Ma-ra-na-tha. As you say the word silently, say it with attention. Give your full attention to the word, listening to the word as you say it. Say the word gently. Don't use excessive force, but say it faithfully. In other words, keep returning to the word whenever you become distracted. Allow the word to lead you from the mind to the heart, from thoughts to silence, from desire to stillness, from complexity to simplicity, and from being scattered to being present. Sit still, close your eyes, and silently say your word. Ma-ra-na-tha.